Hello, this is Sean Wheeler with Teaching Humans, and today's episode we get to talk with Dr. Jeremy Brueck, a recent doctoral, what would that be, a doctoral achiever?
Graduate.
Graduate, something like that. Very good. So Jeremy, why don't we just start off with kind of what you do, what are you about, where you're from, all that.
Sure. Well, my name's Jeremy Brueck, and I am from the Akron area. I live in Greene, Ohio, with my family, beautiful wife, and we have three sons that are at various stages in their educational career. I work at the University of Akron, where I'm a visiting assistant professor in the College of Education Department of Curricular and Instructional Studies. My primary role there is to teach undergraduate pre-service educators in a variety of course topics. I also am the Associate Director at the University of Akron Center for Literacy, where I do design and development of a variety of professional development and professional learning experiences focused on literacy and transliteracy experiences in the primary and secondary classrooms. So I'm pretty busy between all those things, but in my spare time I enjoy playing golf, and I also do some digital music creation and a variety of other artistic outlets. How's that?
Well, I mean, it's quite a bit. Enjoy long walks on the beach.
Right. I read books, you know.
Yeah. What's the furthest away from home you've ever been?
Probably Germany and France would have to be it. I've been there, presented a few years back at the Society for Scientific Research in Reading conference, where I presented some of the work and research that I've been doing around the topic of ebooks and early literacy.
Well, I wanted to talk with you because I think in a lot of ways you and I run into kind of run in the same crowd, and very often we're kind of cast as provocateurs. People who maybe are swimming a little bit against things. And I know in watching you, I've witnessed moments where I think you achieve really great clarity on some issues and you say it very well. And then other times when you're just frustrated with how slow the evolution is coming. So I guess to start us, we'll talk from here, but I think, what do you think about this idea of changing things via evolution or changing them via revolution? And where do you see those playing out? Maybe each. I'm sure they're always both a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the evolution versus revolution. I'm not sure that I come down on one side or the other, and it's just like all the things that happen when you get into higher ed. There's probably this gray area in between, and it's wide open to your interpretation. But I see them in a couple of different lights. As far as evolution, I think that school and learning and what it means to be knowledgeable, it has been an evolution, and we've seen things change, and it's happened. I always take a literacy background and approach to it. It happened from the beginning of having verbal communication, progressing on to a written language, and then the evolution of transmitting thoughts through written and expressive means, first in cave paintings, and then on to writing and making books and copying them by scribes, and then on. So we've seen quite an evolution there, and from that perspective, I think it's taken quite a long time. So since we first had cave paintings to where we are now with publishing on, as far as digital means, that's taken quite a bit of time. And I think that it's a natural progression, and we see that through a lot of things in life, that things constantly evolve. As far as the revolution, I think that if we're going to radically alter what it means to be well educated, what this idea of knowledge means, then I think that's where revolution comes. And we don't have time necessarily. Our kids don't have time to wait for the evolution to come, and that's where I come down on the side of revolution, that maybe it's time that we start doing some drastic things to get attention, to gain some notoriety, and to push our ideas further and further into not just the education as a profession, but also push it on to the general public and the general population to help them radically think about and reconceptualize what we mean by school, by education, and what is important for our kids to know.
I remember being in a conference room with you one time. We were at some conference. I think maybe it was at Camp Columbus, and I remember you saying that we don't talk a lot about the reason for school. That conversation doesn't seem to be happening. And I think along with that, I'm finding out, or at least I'm thinking a lot more about this idea that we're not getting a very clear vision of the possible or the why or anything. Everything's coming down in a mandated kind of plotting form. Where do you see? Because I'm looking for it. Where do you see people who are really sharing a vision of what you're talking about?
Where do I see it? Honestly, I don't see it a whole lot. I mean, I see small pockets occurring, and it happens when I travel around and I meet with other educators at some of the different, I guess, conferences or professional organizations that are meeting. I see it occurring in some way, shape, or form when people are sharing about it in my personal learning network that occurs in the digital realm for the most part. I see some evidence of it through things people are sharing on Twitter. But in general, I'd say that conversation isn't happening on a widespread basis, and there's probably a pretty small population that really is looking critically at what is the impotence behind educating people in the manner that we've been doing for quite some time, and questioning whether it's still a valid pursuit that our society should undertake, and more people that are just willing to be led along by whoever it is that's kind of seized enough authority and influence to lead these people. So what was your question again, Sean?
You're right. I mean, well, one of the things is I was asking kind of where are we seeing people having a vision for education? I know we don't have enough moonshots right now. You know what I mean? We don't have Kennedy saying we're going to the moon. There's not enough. It seems like we've given over some amount of control and influence to the blended learning people. Mm-hmm. This kind of like walled garden, LMSE kind of thing. And so we're purchasing or we're acquiring the how-to, but never the why.
Yeah.
Or how we can look at standards. Like, I mean, can standards be a good thing? Can we see a vision where standards would fit into what we're talking about, or do we have to get rid of those two? Those aren't conversations we're having. Like whether we should or shouldn't, or how we use them. Yeah. It's more like what can you sell via them?
I mean, I think there's a big commercial aspect behind learning right now. It's becoming quite a commercial business. As we've moved in towards, well into the standards era, because let's be honest, standards aren't anything new. They had them when I started my teaching career 15 years ago, and what they've done is just kind of morphed or transformed or been modified in a little bit. But it seems like now there's a lot of people in this space that are looking to profit off those standards, and to kind of pre-package curriculum and push it out to the masses and make their $100 a shot or whatever it is they're making. Probably more than that, actually. Mm-hmm. As far as people that are actually wondering about education, I do see that there are people out there that are providing some more dynamic leadership and asking big questions and looking to work with various stakeholders to kind of change what they've always done. I see it on the local level here with the school district that my kids go to, but it's usually in small things. So, for a long time, we've known that there are underserved populations, or there's socioeconomic groups that might not have all they need to be set up to be successful learners. In the past, what we've done is maybe let them qualify for free or reduced lunch, let's say, because we know that they need to have a healthy, a well-balanced diet, so that they're where they need to be physically to be able to take the mental capacity that it takes to be a good learner. But now what I'm seeing here, like on a local level, is it's not just free and reduced lunch anymore. Now it's breakfast as well. So to me, that's kind of a big deal that all of a sudden now we're recognizing as a community, hey, we've got to get these kids from the very beginning of the day ready to go if we're going to have them on track. Unfortunately, where that innovation has been pushed from, in my opinion, is from testing. So because of the push for standardized testing and for having kids ready to be tested, now we want them not to arrive hungry because we know we're going to start testing at 9 a.m. as soon as the school day starts. So I think there's good and bad in that, but at least I see some progress being made, and the conversation is like, hey, kids need something in their belly before they start the school day if you really think they're going to do anything that's productive, So we're trying to kind of combat these social issues that, our communities face. On a larger level, I think that there are some people around the United States that are asking big questions and pushing the boundaries. I've got a good colleague, David Jakes, I think, that always asks, what if, and talking in those things. What if we did this, or and trying to push and probe and give some back. And there's other thought leaders, I think, as well, are slowly emerging, but I'm not sure that they have the voice that they need and the audience they need to make widespread change.
I've been thinking a little bit about literacy and what it means to be literate now as opposed to maybe before. You said that kind of evolutionary process. I'm finding in talking to people that I would say that most of the teaching force is largely digitally illiterate, or at least illiterate in what we're doing now, or at least not comfortable claiming that they are literate in it, right? I mean, we're still in this whole like digital immigrant phase.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of the work we're trying to do is a more broad view of literacy, right? Promoting a more broad view of literacy.
I think that's a big part of it. Literacy has been the foundation of the educational or the learning experience for probably since the beginning of school. If you're going to be successful in any of the content areas, it starts with being literate. Because you have to be able to find information, interact with that information, synthesize that all, and add it to the worldview that you already have so you can learn and grow from it. So I think literacy is extremely important, and it's crucial to a learned society. Right now, I would tend to agree that when we think about literacy, we're not thinking broadly enough about all of the how new technologies play a role in literacy and what it means, and we're not asking ourselves any longer, what does it mean to be truly literate? It's not just I can read text and answer multiple choice questions, or even tell main idea and supporting details in a paragraph or three. Instead, we're as a society communicating across a wide span of devices, media. And that is vastly different than what our parents knew and what everyone that came before them did. So I don't see enough conversation around what makes a literate student in 2014. We talk a lot and we hear a lot of people throwing around 21st century skills, and that's been around for a while. And it's kind of like, listen, 21st century skills, we've been in the 21st century a long time. It's time to stop thinking about just that and move on. And so I like to use the term transliteracy because I think that's the era that we're in. We're in an era where kids and teachers and adults need to master a wide array of transliteracy practices if they're going to be successful in our world. I don't think that teachers are there and necessarily the parents are there. I think kids are there and they're ready. And that's probably the scary part to many people because the adults aren't sure what's going on with it all.
Right, and so we tend towards fear in a lot of ways, right? I mean, remember 5 years ago, 10 years ago, your main dealing with the internet as an educator was the dangers of the internet.
Right.
Now we're hopefully turning a little bit of a corner and talking about responsibility on the internet.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to a time when we've widened the audience enough to think of the internet as something like somewhere where our kids go to go learn and also perform. Right? I've been in the audience to your son's writing,
Right.
via his ebooks. I've never met him, and there are probably hundreds of people who have read your son's work because you found an audience for what he was doing. It's so easy to do.
Right.
And one of the things I'm most excited about is the whole idea of getting our students out in front of an audience. It's cheaper to write a book right now than it is to buy one.
Right.
That's incredible. That's never happened before. And I know you promote this idea a lot, that we need more writing.
Yeah.
And that will help bring people along. Right now, I think we have, the illiterate trying to teach literacy to kids who already can read.
Right. Well, and I think we limit them too by just the very word writing. Writing doesn't necessarily just mean producing an essay piece or something in a Word doc or like that. When I think about writing and when I say we need more writing, it might mean that we need more kids making videos that get published on YouTube. And mainly, I say that because to get to the point where you're publishing and sharing on that platform, there's a lot of writing that goes into that if you're going to do it well. So we go through the complete writing process of coming up with ideas and making maps and mind maps and figuring out where stuff goes, then making outlines, then adding details, then editing and revising, before we even get to the point where we actually make anything in a digital manner. And that's the process that I've tried to teach my kids, right? That we're working through the writing process, and in the end, it might not be a traditional book that gets published, but it might be a video that goes on YouTube or Vimeo or something else, an ebook that we can share through this other mechanism. So when we talk about writing, we often, as educators or as the illiterate possibly, discredit or discount this type of writing that I've just described, and I think that's really a dangerous and a bad thing. Kids like to create, kids like to write. They don't necessarily like to create and write like they've always done it, like all the books you see behind me, right? They might not want to make that. So I think that personal ownership and passion in the topic that they're writing about plays a big part of that, and we don't often give them those types of opportunities to write and to publish.
Is it because it can't be measured in numbers? Is it because it's hard to grade? Is it because the people who are supposed to be running it don't understand it? I mean, I can think of a lot of reasons why it's not happening, or I've been told a lot of reasons why it can't happen.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have to do with this kind of data collection mentality where, the numbers were the easiest to understand for so long.
Yeah. I think it's because in the education profession we still don't value qualitative ways of knowing and understanding as much as we do quantitative, and it's been a huge thing. Even in educational research, we've only very recently come into an era where people are saying, okay, there's as much there's as much credibility to someone that's done qualitative work as there is quantitative, and that's been a major shift. Now we're getting into a space in academia where there are a lot of people doing mixed methods research. So there's a quantitative component and a qualitative. I don't think that's trickled down into the K-12 space yet, and I don't think practicing teachers and or pre-service teachers are being taught what is qualitative versus quantitative, what are the merits of both, and here's how we apply them to a situation. Until that happens, I think the problem is just what you're saying. We don't know how to grade it. We don't know how to put value on it or whatnot. And it's a little depressing to me. I think to me the value in writing is the pleasure that I take from taking something from here and getting it into whatever the finished product is. And we don't value that right now, and that's really, really sad.
Yeah. It is.
And what kid wants to just be told what to write? We're doing all this test prep, and I apologize because I hear my teenage sons coming in, so if they get the disturbance, that's what it is. But we don't give kids reasons to write or opportunities to write about what they want to write. We script for them what they should be writing, what they should be thinking, and that's where they start to hate writing. You know, if I told my kid right now, read these 3 pages and then write me a paragraph, it's got to have a topic sentence, 3 supporting sentences, and the conclusion, and then I want 3 more paragraphs like that, they're just like turned off right away. You know? Whereas if I told my kid, tell me a story, boy, they'd go on forever.
So yeah, I mean, there's this whole idea of unit planning that, you know, I mean, we're taught, and it's ingrained in us so much, this whole idea of like teaching in units. You know, it's like we've picked the topic already. We know what the end product is going to be, everyone. You know, if I don't feel like watching that movie,
right,
I don't feel like playing that game right now, you know, there's nowhere for me to go. And yeah, I think about that a lot. And if we could turn that around and describe what we see when people are doing the things that they enjoy, right? Setting up events where people learn things.
Yeah.
I think this idea of, that's why I'm so offended by teachers pay teachers. You know, I have to say it. The sight offends me. There's nothing more offensive to my sensibilities than something like teachers pay teachers, which is, first of all, should be teachers share freely with teachers as coworkers and friends.
Right.
You know, sharing value, being thought leaders. Not only should it be like teachers share with teachers, but right now, most importantly for me, is this whole idea that it's the unit that is the thing that matters most. That's what teachers are trading between each other.
Right.
Is this unit plan. And it doesn't seem to describe the kind of impassioned, engaged learning that we see when we see impassioned, engaged learning. You know, most often, some wonder is baked in.
Yeah.
And that's not in the unit plans.
No, and not at all. It's not in there. And the reason I think that it isn't in there often is because for teachers who have a lot of roles that they have to play, a lot of responsibilities, not just professionally, but just like all the rest of us with whatever's happening in their personal lives, it's much more easy to follow the unit plan prescription than it is to think outside the box a little bit, allow kids some creativity and some wiggle room, and help get them where they need to go from that. It's a lot easier to have everything, you know, scripted right out and say, today we're doing this, and I know that I'm doing it between this time and this time. Part of that, I think, is, you know, the value that we put on time. Part of it is the concept that we only have 9 months a year that we learn, you know, in the current school year model. There's just a lot of things. And when you ask earlier, when we started talking about evolution versus revolution, I think those are the types of things that are slowing and keeping the evolution so slowed down, is because we're really constrained in our thinking of what does a school year look like, what is a classroom, what is a school, what, you know, when do we know people have learned. We're so prescriptive about that it's just limiting, and what it does is it takes out the opportunities to have innovative practice come into play, and it sets itself up beautifully for color by number education. And when while people are comfortable with that, teachers are comfortable with that, parents are comfortable with that, our elected representatives are comfortable with that because they get some kind of number that's meaningful to them back, we're not going to ever get the evolution to where I think what you and I are talking about. And I think that is why there's a need for revolution at some point in time, where people just say, stop. You know, this is silly, this is pointless, and I'm concerned. I have those concerns for my own kids, and that's really what's gotten me there. Once it was my own kids in that system, and I felt that they weren't being served in the manner that I thought that they should be, or that would be valuable to them, then it became really important for me to start speaking my mind and making my voice heard, because I want my kids to be successful in their world, and I know it's different than mine, and I think that's a key that many people don't understand quite yet.
That's something that really got me fired up, is when I started seeing it happen to my own kids, when I started seeing you know, when my highest expectation is just please don't kill the curiosity that my kid seems to have without you.
Right.
You know, that's a pretty low bar to meet, and I you know, it's not being met.
Yeah.
Just don't kill his curiosity. And
Yeah, I mean, I have a kid. I have one of my sons. He's going to be, he's a teenager now, so he's in middle school. He's had some learning challenges since he was young. Early identified. It's been on an IEP since basically kindergarten. Every year I look at the IEP. It says the same thing. And finally, just last year, I lost it. I said, they call me in the meeting. They want to talk about his progress. They pull out the IEP. And I said, listen, I've seen this IEP. I clearly know my son doesn't do well following multi-step directions. But what you're not telling me is what are you doing in the classroom, in his daily school life to make him successful at that? Let me tell you what I do as a parent. I have crayons that I can write on the mirror in the bathroom that says, every morning, here's what you need to do. Brush your teeth, comb your hair, put on deodorant, clean your retainer, wash your face, get dressed and go to school. That's something I have in place in my home, not just me. My wife should get credit for this as well because we've talked as a family. But let me tell you what I do so he understands that. But in the IEP, there's nowhere that says, here's what we're doing to make sure that he's successful when he has to do X, Y, or Z. And where are all the tracking mechanisms so I know that you're doing that with him every time? I'll tell you what, his special ed teacher was in tears by the end of that conference. And should I feel guilty for that? I mean, I felt bad. I said, I didn't come here to make you cry or to say that you're a bad teacher. What I'm asking you is, what are you doing for my kid?
Right.
Which is, I think, is the exact same thing that you're asking about. What are you doing for my kid? So they take this curiosity and we build on it.
Right. And hopefully we're going to see more of it eventually. I want to go back to one of your other revolutionary things. You headed up the OETCX, which is our state conference here in Ohio. You kind of, with a few others, formed this kind of X conference. I participated in it. I thought it was wonderful. I think it's the greatest thing. Could you tell me a little bit about your experience with that and kind of, more importantly, like what's the reception that you get from that at different levels?
I get a lot of good feedback, I mean positive feedback from the people that attend. Mm-hmm. I think in general those are people that are similar to you and I and are looking for something a little different out of the traditional conference format, and they want to try something new, and they're receptive, they're open to trying something new rather than just the 60-minute sit and get lecture and then move on to the next block. I get some negative feedback occasionally from some of the different formats we tried. We tried to do an ed tech around the horn, like the ESPN show, where there's a panel and then you have a person moderating, and it's ESPN calls it the game of competitive banter. So there's some collegial, joshing and kind of kidding and sarcasm. I tried that at OETCX, and it was a tremendous success. Great feedback. I took it to the Ohio School Boards Association and did it. Terrible feedback. They hated it. They didn't. We said right up front, listen, we all know each other. We're friends. We're colleagues. We respect each other. We're probably going to get on each other a little bit and say some things that might not, be so nice. But we're good with that. Right. They couldn't handle it. Right. Bad feedback on the conference reviews from that one. I think that the organizers of the main OETC conference, the Board of Regents, I think that they get positive feedback because they ask us back for a second year, and I'm assuming they're going to ask us back for a third. I think that they like to provide that opportunity, and I think at least from the people I've talked to at ETech and now the Board of Regents, since that organization has changed a little bit, know that there is a portion of the population in Ohio that's looking for that type of event. They see value in it, and that's why they ask us to come back and do it. They haven't backed us up with really any money to do anything outside, bring in outside people or be able to pay people to do some things. They have given us resources, space, right. And I can't say that they haven't given us anything. It costs a lot to rent that conference center and to make sure that there's a robust Wi-Fi and all of those things. So they've supported us in that respect, but they've never said to us, hey, here's a budget. Go at it and make it even better. I think that we can do better in that space. and I hope that I have the time and the support to do better this year. I think it's a rewarding experience, and it's something that we need to try to spread a little bit more. I think the ed camps in that regard are very similar. The way I look at it, if we can just expose one more person to an alternate format of professional learning, then I look at it as a success. If one person walks in and says, I've never done anything like this, and they walk out and say, wow, that was really powerful, then I feel good about it, because what they'll do is hopefully take that back to their school or their district, and they'll say, you know what we did at the conference? We could probably do that in our school, and it might look a little different, but let's try it. So, that's kind of the perspective I take, and I hope that it's been meaningful and worthwhile for other people. I know I learned a tremendous amount just from being part of that and helping organize it.
It's great to finally meet all my local heroes. It's really great to be in a room, and people I only see on Twitter or I read their blogs, and then all of a sudden they're in the room jumping around in front of me. That's what I got out of it. Was an opportunity to meet people and just actually have some conversations that weren't scripted.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why we started to try to do that Craft EDU, which was like another loose band of unconference type experience. We were like, listen, we have great conversations when we come to these conferences, but when do they occur? They occur after we've done the sessions and after we've done all the formal stuff, and then we all hit a bar that's across from the hotel, and we feel relaxed and we're comfortable. Maybe we have a nice beverage or two, and that relaxes people. I don't know. But the conversations flow, and ideas get jump-started, and then we're ready to move on. And that's what's the really exciting part. And we said, can we replicate that maybe without the booze in the conference center? And that's kind of what we're trying to do.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, Jeremy, thanks for spending some time with me and just sharing some thoughts. I look forward to a whole other year of getting at it with you, and maybe we can figure this thing out.
We'll keep working for it. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, Sean. You guys can always get a hold of me. I'm on the Twitters and the Instagrams and all the social networks. So I look forward to working side by side with you, and maybe it's time you and I lead that revolution.
All right, I'm in. All right, thanks a lot, Jeremy.
Take care.